discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Fat Nasty Nerd Run-Throughs, and this time we're doing a no run-through review over Star Wars Rebellion: Rise of the Empire, the newest expansion for Star Wars Rebellion. And guys, I gotta say, this expansion is just shit. I'm obviously kidding. I really hope you're still here because I gotta say, I really like this expansion. You might be wondering, well, Seth, why didn't you do a run-through of it with the actual expansion? I honestly thought about it because my run-through for Rebellion is really long. It's actually, I think it's one of my most disliked. It is one of my most viewed videos, but also one of my most disliked. And that intro skit and stuff is just way too long. I really thought about just redoing it, and I might. So first of all, if you want to see a run-through of the game with this expansion, let me know in the comments below. Now, enough of that. Let's talk about this expansion, which I still have Star Wars Rebellion, obviously, and I've never really considered getting rid of it, but I don't rave about it as much as a lot of people do. It hasn't, it hardly makes any top 10s. It was just one of those games that I played it so much that it got very, very stale really quickly, and I played it a lot. For a lot of board game players, like in the general domain of what I do, or even anywhere bigger, playing a game a lot is like playing it twice a year, which everyone's like, what? That's not a lot. It really is, because there's just so many other games that need to be played. So but I played it 15 times, it feels like. I just played it over and over and over again, playing the Rebels and the Empire and going back and forth. And so what I'm going to do with this is kind of do a little quick no-run-through review over Rebellion. And then jump into what this brings. So, Star Wars Rebellion is pretty much, as everyone says, Star Wars in a box. There we go. Here, I'll flip this so you guys can see my face. Oh, yeah. It replicates the original trilogy almost to a T, kind of like what War of the Ring does with the what if this happened. Star Wars Rebellion does just that, and it's amazing. What Rebellion does is kind of that, it does a mechanic I really, really like, that give-take, whereas if you want to do a lot on your turn, you're pretty much letting your opponent do a lot on their turn. But you get to do a lot, but so do they. So it's that tug-of-war aspect. Then you have the, okay, well, you know what, I won't do a lot on my turn so I can stop them, but you're not doing a lot. It does that beautifully. And it does both the aspect of, okay, well, what if Darth Vader captured Leia and actually kept her and interrogated her and got all this information? Or what if he did it to Han Solo? Or he did do it to Han Solo. What if he did it to Luke? And then what if Luke actually did turn to the dark side? And just all this stuff. This brilliant mechanism of tug-of-war between that is awesome. Then you have the aspect of that hidden, it's not a hidden treasure, sorry, hidden movement, kind of. Whereas the Rebel player, you have a base. That's your Rebel base, and you can stockpile it with troops to protect it if it ever gets found. But you have a plethora of options to choose from, and you can make it thematic. You can put the Rebel base on Hoth, or on, well, I guess it's not Dantooine, but you can put it on Dantooine, or Tatooine, or, not Mustafar, but, well, I guess actually later on you could move it, you can actually have it on Alderaan, or just in any of these areas, to just make it really, really interesting on how the game would work out. And so the Rebels are trying to do all these, guerrilla tactics and finish these certain objectives that only they know, while the Empire is just huge in military and just sweeping across the galaxy to try and find the Rebel base. And it's just amazing. If you want to sit down and just really get into the Star Wars theme, there's nothing better for it. Now here's why I don't rave about it as much as I just did. It's because once you play it a couple times, it gets kind of, I wouldn't say boring, but there's no shock value anymore. For example, there's a card that if you recruit Obi-Wan, you can have a card that says if he ever gets captured, you play it, he sacrifices himself, and the Rebel gets a point. Well, if you've played it once, not really once, but if you played it twice or 3 times, the Empire knows that if you hire or if you recruit Obi-Wan, they're never going to capture him just on the off chance that you have that card. And I think that kind of ruins it for a lot of people, or at least it ruins it for me, because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll get Obi-Wan, and he's going to be perfectly fine because the Empire will never try and capture him. It really only comes into play if you're playing with someone new who doesn't know that that's in there. But then it goes, because you assign your leaders, like the people you recruit, to missions, so you know, oh, if you're sending Darth Vader on a mission, he's probably going to try and capture someone, so you can plan accordingly. I mean, and I played it a lot of times with the same person, and it was great. And then it's just like, man, this is the same thing really over and over. And it's like, oh, you're saying, and his argument was, well, that brings in a new level of strategy, that if you're sending in Darth Vader, then he can send in someone else. I don't like that. I like the idea of like, oh, what are you gonna do? And instead of, oh, I know what you're gonna do for this game, for Star Wars Rebellion. So I also always had the feeling that it was easier for the Rebels to play because of setup. I felt that if you that the Rebel player gets to see where the Death Star is and where all the units are before he gets to pick his Rebel base, I think that it's easier for that. And that's really the only thing I think of whenever I decide if it's balanced or not is, oh, the Rebel sees your Death Star way over there, I'm going to pick way over here, so it's just like, it's going to take you forever to find me. I think, I can't think of another way to make it any better. It was just one of those things that I'm like, okay, as the Empire, then obviously you're on the you're as far away from the Death Star as possible. Excuse me. So I guess I'll just keep going that way. And I don't know. It doesn't really bug me a whole lot, but I do think that playing the Rebels is a little bit easier, which I guess is good because they're feeling like they're losing the entire game. Anyway, so Star Wars Rebellion still sits at a at a scale of 1 to 10, probably a 7.5. It's probably still ranked as an 8. It was an 8 for me, but I think it dropped because I hadn't played it in so long, like at least over a year. Now, Rise of the Empire. First of all, bringing in aspects of Rogue One, which is amazing. I love that movie. Like, it might be my favorite Star Wars movie. It was so good. So this, I did not expect to come out. I did not expect them to put out any more content for that game because, like, they'd have to make a whole nother board. They'd have to do all this other stuff to make it like thematic. Like, if they wanted to do anything with the 7th movie, they'd have to introduce all these new planets, which add more stuff. That it already takes a 3 to 4 hour long game and makes it even longer if you're trying to add more content. And so I was like, this game is just there and it's not getting any support. Well, so this expansion came out and oh my god, it is a must-have. I completely think so. So for 2 reasons. One, it adds more content. Like the exact same thing I said about, oh, I know what you're going to be doing because of I played it so much. Threw that in there, and I was like, I don't know what you're doing. I can probably guess, but hey, you have a bunch of new cards that I don't know exist. I have a bunch of new cards that you don't know exist. I have a bunch of new people to recruit, which for the Rebels is Jane, not Jin. Yeah, I don't even remember their names right now. Jeez, Ip Man. Forrest Whitaker, just that's who they get, and then the Empire gets the man. I'm drawing a blank on their name. The Empire gets this guy, and then this guy, and and then the Rebel player gets these people. Totally blanking on their names right now, but just notice it says Disney on the back. Anyway, it adds all those people, which are new action cards, and then so. They brought in a little bit, of new people and new content, which I think is just amazing. This game flourishes on just more and more, and that was pretty much one of the biggest reasons why I got it. The second reason why this is a must-have is because it makes combat really interesting. So in just Rebellion, there were 2 decks of cards. There were space cards and ground troops. So whenever you fought, you had a space battle. Then if the person brought ground troops, then they had a ground battle, and then it just went back and forth until someone either lost or retreated. The reason why this sucks is because, one, it kind of made it clunky in the sense that whoever your leader was, they told you how many cards you drew from each deck. And that brings in the same Memoir 44 aspect of, oh, you didn't really actually beat me at that through any type of tactic or anything. You just got lucky on your card draws. And so I didn't get any damage blocks. You got all of them. So yay, lucky for you. And then, so it goes with space and ground, both. Just, you got lucky on the draw. I'm not even including the dice aspect because of, dice happen. So that was annoying. What Rise of the Empire brings is two, they're called theater cards, so theater decks, so for space and ground, for both the Empire and the Rebellion side. And whenever you're doing a space combat, both sides take their space deck. They don't draw from it, they have all the cards available to them. And they can decide which one they want to play. They choose one for that battle, place it face down, then the other person does, and they flip them. This is really cool for two reasons. One, because it allows someone to look at the situation and be like, okay, this is really good right now, and I could really use it. Because also on the cards are two options you can use. One option is if you happen to have that type of unit in that battle, it's a better option. And the other one is just a generic, hey, use it real quick. And this is really, really cool. Like, I love it so much. Because you no longer have that luck of, okay, well, I guess I got those. You have everything available. And it's different a little bit based on both sides, and depending on which ability you want to use. So you can look at all your options of, I think, 10 cards, and be like, okay, this one I really need. Ooh, but this, what if he plays this, or what if he does this, then I should just try and defend and block damage. Or it's like, well, I need to be aggressive here. So you choose, he chooses, you flip him. The active player, the person who initiated the combat pretty much, is their card triggers first, and then it goes the other person. So some are cancel cards, some are like an ATSD, for example, for ground combat. If there's a, not ATSD, if there's an airspeeder on the ground unit for the rebel player and there's an AT-AT being attacked, they just deal 4 damage to the AT-AT because, hey, that's what they do. And that's awesome because it immediately just kills an AT-AT. And what's really cool about this is because your opponent then knows limited information, because you don't like discard, you discard the card that you used, but it doesn't come back until you use all of your 10 cards. So if you're do a lot of space combat, your opponent is like, I know you only have 1 card left, so it's like, do I want to attack you aggressively and make you use it? Then you get all of them back. Because once you use all 10, that's when you get them all back. It's just amazing. It is just way better than what they need. I essentially threw the other cards. I will never not use these theater decks because it's just awesome. Like with space combat and then with ground combat, the rebel player has a card I don't want to spoil a whole lot here, but it's just really, really cool. The way they did combat in this expansion. I would say get it pretty much to clean up combat because it makes it way better. Now they did a few other things in this expansion. They added in a new type of die, like these green dice, and what those are is that now instead of just having your your skills, like if you have a fist, you roll one red or black die, doesn't really matter. And you try, now they have little tinier icons next to that, which are minor skills. So if you have 1 big fist and 2 smaller red fists, you roll 3 dice. One of those is a red or black, and the smaller ones are the green dice. And the green dice are really cool because what they do is it's not 50-50. You have 2 options of getting a success on these green dice, which, that kind of sucks because of whenever you're trying to do actions or do missions, then you have a higher chance of not getting a result. But that means you can send a guy who really has 1 big fist and he technically rolls 3 dice, so he has a 3 skill in that. But it really helps in combat because the result on the green die is a direct hit. It's not a certain, hey, this only deals damage to a black ship, or this only deals damage to a red ship. It's, hey, this is going to deal damage to whatever you want. So it really helps in combat. I would say that Rise of the Empire expansion really focused more on the combat. I think that was probably the biggest complaint a lot of people had with the game, and they did it in such a way that like pretty much fixes the whole game for me, because you have two options. Whenever you're setting up, I know because it comes with a new deck of new cards, new mission cards, and some of them replace the other ones to make more sense for the game and the expansion. But whenever you're doing setup, you choose kind of like secretly which deck you want to use, and it is revealed eventually later to your opponent. But when you're deciding, you either choose to use the new deck or the old deck, and your opponent does the same. You reveal a certain type of card, and then that tells your opponent, hey, you're using the new deck. And then so you can have two olds, you can have two news, you can have an old and a new on both sides, and it throws a wrench in things that just make it interesting, that I think was definitely needed, because for people who played this game a lot, it wasn't as like exciting. I think, at least for me, it wasn't as exciting. The other thing that they did was the setup is a little bit different. Because it's set before 4, the Empire player does not start with a Death Star. He actually starts with a Death Star in construction. He places it anywhere, almost anywhere, on the board, and then, the Rebel player chooses his base. But the Rebel player now has 3 turns to act and do things before the Death Star actually comes in. And then the Death Star comes in and it just kicks off like regular rebellion. But I thought that was really cool. And it makes it to where like the Empire doesn't just, quickly get 2 Death Stars, which doesn't really make a whole lot of thematic sense. There was never 2 Death Stars. There was, but not at the same time. And I don't know, that part's kind of weird. It's so needed. I absolutely love this expansion. Like I said, Rebellion was probably at a 7 or 7.5. With this expansion, probably brings up to an 8.5. Like, it is so good. And the combat just makes it awesome, and the new content just brings it back. Like, it made me fall in love with it again. Like, I had no problem sitting down for 3 hours playing it again, because I was just like, ooh, what's that new card? Oh, haha, yeah, I have all these people in now. And in combat was just not as, oh, that's another thing about combat. So, you might be thinking, well, your leaders, they allowed you to draw cards, but since you draw all of them, like, what happens? Well, now your leader's ability includes rerolls, dice rerolls, meaning that if you're rolling 5 dice and your opponent or your leader has a 3 in space battles, that means you get to reroll 3 dice. So you can be like, oh, I really didn't get what I wanted, and it just makes it a little less random, which I think also cleans up the combat a whole lot, because combat is a lot in this game, especially through the Empire. They're going to constantly be fighting, so it is one of those things you have to kind of remember, because the friend I was playing with, he probably lost a few more battles than he meant to, because he forgot about rerolls. And, I sure as shit wasn't going to remind him. No, I did remind him a little bit, but there was one I was like, at this point, you got to remember. So it is a little bit weird trying to think of that, but it's much better than, I get to draw 3 cards. Oh, I got screwed on these cards, or haha, I got the best cards. It's now, I got screwed on those die rolls. At least I have a chance to mitigate that a little bit. So, 7.5 regular Star Wars Rebellion, or 7, depending on how I'm feeling. Easily an 8.5 with this expansion. Like, it has to be, you have to get it, I think. So, that's it, everyone. Let me know what you think of this expansion or Rebellion by itself in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you want to support us, you can go ahead and click that link to go to my Patreon account. If you have any suggestions, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below to go to my Board Game Geek list. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.